Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we have a really fascinating stack of sources in front of us.
We really do.
Yeah, it's a collection of like psychological essays, some behavioral biology research, and these philosophical frameworks that all point toward a pretty radical claim about the way we live.
Right. A complete paradigm shift, honestly.
Exactly. Because usually, when we talk about suffering or anxiety or that feeling of just being completely overwhelmed, we look for the big dramatic event.
The obvious disasters.
Yeah, the disaster, the sudden loss, a huge failure. We kind of picture a wrecking ball crashing into the side of a building. But today, we're looking at a totally different blueprint for why we feel that way.
And the core mission of our deep dive today is to explore this argument that a massive amount of our daily anxiety,
That permanent low-grade panic we all have.
right, that background hum of stress,
Yeah.
the argument is that it doesn't actually begin with a moment of loss. It begins with, of all things, a vocabulary error.
Which is just a wild claim.
It's a remarkable premise. I mean, the overarching theme across these essays and behavioral studies
Mm.
suggests that human suffering often starts with a simple moment of mislabeling,
Mislabeling what exactly?
specifically confusing what we merely want or what we've just adapted to with what is truly fundamentally essential for our survival.
Okay, let's unpack this because, necessary and essential are heavy words.
Very heavy.
In everyday conversation, I think most of us, if you're listening to this right now, you probably use those words interchangeably to just mean stuff I really, really need.
Right, like we throw them around constantly.
Yeah, like my morning coffee is essential or my Wi-Fi is necessary. So how did these sources actually define those terms?
Well, the research draws a very hard, very precise line here. It argues that necessary and essential are not just two categories that happen to overlap sometimes.
Okay.
They're the exact same category, just described from two different directions.
What do you mean by two different directions?
So necessary names what cannot be removed without ending something, like ending life, ending fundamental function, or ending truth.
Right.
And essential names what belongs to the irreducible core of a thing. It's what is left over when absolutely everything removable has been removed.
Oh, wow. So it's almost mathematical, like an equation based entirely on subtraction.
Yes, that is the exact core mechanism running through all these arguments.
Yeah.
The essence of a thing is, by definition, what remains after subtraction.
Okay, so if we apply that to our lives,
Therefore, if something can be subtracted from your life and your life continues,
like you don't literally die.
right, if you continue to function, you continue to breathe, continue to exist as a human being, then that thing was never part of your essence. It was never actually essential.
Man, think about it like architecture. Imagine you're standing in this uh, beautifully decorated living room.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You have these massive load-bearing structural support beams holding up the roof, and then you have a decorative throw pillow sitting on the couch. What we are doing psychologically, according to these sources, is spending our lives pointing at the throw pillow and calling it a support beam.
Exactly. We give it structural importance.
Right. But if you pull that pillow away, the house doesn't collapse. The roof doesn't cave in. The fact that the house is still standing proves the pillow was never holding the house up in the first place.
The pillow is nice, but it is not the foundation. And what's fascinating here is how the psychological framework takes that realization a step further.
How so?
Well, if a non-essential thing, like a specific job title or a certain standard of living, or even the throw pillow from your example,
Yeah.
if it is constantly being called essential, there is always a hidden motive at play.
Interesting.
If it was never essential, but we label it as such, the sources argue we are telling a story to protect something else.
But why do we do this? I mean, if the truth is as obvious as taking the pillow away and seeing that the roof is still there, why are we walking around treating non-essentials as if our actual physical survival depends on them?
Because the systems we live inside rely entirely on that confusion.
Like society in general.
Economic, relational, cultural, even spiritual systems. They run on what the sociological essays call a quiet inversion.
A quiet inversion.
Yes, they deliberately take what is completely unnecessary and they elevate it to essential status.
Oh, I see. Because once something is labeled essential, it can't be questioned.
Exactly. It must be protected, provided for, defended, and constantly worried over.
Mhm.
It creates this perpetual state of labor.
Oh, man. Think about how modern marketing works.
It's the perfect example.
It relies entirely on convincing you that, a certain type of car or living in a specific neighborhood is absolutely essential to your social survival.
Right. But a genuine necessity rarely needs a PR campaign.
That is so true. I remember reading the section on water in the sources and finding it just so striking. Water doesn't need an advertising agency to convince you to drink it.
No, it really doesn't.
A body that requires water will naturally seek it out without any persuasion whatsoever. But, okay, hold on. I need to push back here for a second.
Sure, great.
If water doesn't need a PR campaign, what about something like earning a paycheck?
Okay.
My body doesn't naturally seek out spreadsheet data or like quarterly performance reviews, but if I don't fiercely defend my job, I can't pay the water bill.
That's a very common pushback.
So where does this framework draw the line between a biological truth and just a modern practical reality?
That is the exact friction point where most people get stuck when reading this stuff. The
Wow.
distinction lies between an underlying biological need and the temporary swappable tool you use to meet it.
Swappable tool.
Yes, water is the biological essential. Your specific job as, say, a middle manager at a tech company is merely the current instrument you are using to access the water.
Oh, I see.
The trap is that we transfer the life or death urgency of the water onto the job itself. We start believing the tech company is the essential element.
But it's not.
Right. If that job vanished, you would find another way to acquire water because the survival instinct demands it. The defensiveness itself is the red flag.
So the defensiveness is how you know it's not essential.
Exactly.
Hmm.
True necessities do not need a philosophical argument made for them. Only the false ones do.
So if you have to fiercely argue that a specific lifestyle or a particular career path is essential.
You are likely covering up the fact that it is a choice.
Wow. So beneath all of our societal conditioning, the body actually operates on a remarkably honest list.
Very honest and very short.
Yeah, the sources lay this out plainly. If you're listening, write this down. It's air, water, warmth, rest, safety, and basic connection. That's it.
That is the whole list.
Mm.
It's non-negotiable. And the body communicates its need for those things plainly
Mm-hmm.
without any ideology attached to it.
Right. You don't need a complicated worldview to know you are freezing.
Exactly. But almost everything else that gets filed under essential, particular foods, specific daily routines, certain relationships in their current shape, or specific beliefs about who you have to be respected,
Yeah.
those are simply not on the list.
Okay. But if that true list is so incredibly small, why does losing something that is not on that list feel so devastating?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, anyone listening to this right now knows the feeling of a sudden breakup or getting laid off or even just having a major disruption to a daily routine.
It's awful.
It doesn't feel like losing a decorative throw pillow. It feels like a literal physical punch to the gut. Your heart races, your stomach drops. It feels like you might actually die.
And the psychological research does not dismiss that pain at all. It's
Yeah.
very clear about that. It draws a crucial biological distinction between true deprivation and the signal of withdrawal.
Like addiction.
Sorta, yeah.
Yeah.
When those non-essentials are threatened, they don't produce the clear signal of true deprivation, like the burning sensation in your lungs when you hold your breath.
Right. That's deprivation.
Instead, they produce a looping, escalating signal of withdrawal. And this manifests as severe discomfort, anxiety, grief, and often a very real sense of panic.
Because the physiological reaction is real. The sweat on your palms, the insomnia, the discomfort is not imagined.
It is entirely real to the nervous system experiencing it. And to understand why this happens, we have to look at how human biology wires itself.
Okay, let's get into the biology.
The brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. It creates baseline expectations based on what you do every single day.
So it likes routine.
It depends on routine. A system, whether that's a physical body or the neural pathway that has organized itself around a habit, will protest its removal as if survival itself is at stake.
Even if it's not on the short list.
Exactly. When you drink coffee every morning, your brain alters its chemical baseline. Take the coffee away, and the brain sends out an emergency alert because the expected environment has suddenly changed.
It panics.
It triggers a primitive threat response, even when, by any objective measure, your actual survival is completely secure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the behavioral science argues that this terrible feeling of panic is actually just information about adaptation, not information about necessity.
That's the crucial flip.
We just get used to things. We adapt to a certain income level, a particular social status, a comfortable mattress.
Yes.
And treating that physical feeling of adaptation as proof of necessity is the exact mechanism of how we end up desperately defending things that were never load-bearing wall.
Because adaptation feels identical to necessity from the inside.
Oh, identical.
When you are inside the experience, getting used to a luxury feels exactly like needing it to survive.
Mm.
The failure to distinguish between those two states, adaptation and true necessity, is identified across these studies as one of the most reliable sources of unnecessary human suffering.
Because you spend your life guarding a fortress that doesn't actually contain anything vital.
You're guarding empty rooms.
You are exhausted. You're walking the perimeter every single night, armed to the teeth, stressed out of your mind. But the perimeter is just guarding a collection of old magazines and a Wi-Fi router.
It's a tragedy of wasted energy.
So, since we are biologically wired to feel this panic, since our primitive brains literally cannot tell the difference between I am adapting to a new routine and I'm being chased by a predator, how do we break the spell?
Well, the behavioral frameworks offer a very specific, practical mechanism for short-circuiting this panic loop.
Okay, what is it?
It is referred to in the literature as the test.
The ruthless test.
It is remarkably simple and, yes, extremely ruthless.
Let's hear it.
The test is this. If this thing were suddenly gone, not replaced with something better, not gradually phased out over time so your dopamine receptors can slowly adjust,
Right, no weaning off.
just completely gone tomorrow, would life continue? Would your fundamental physical function continue?
Okay, if you're listening right now, seriously, try applying this. Think about the one thing stressing you out the most today.
Yes, bring it to mind.
Maybe it's a project at work, a conflict with a neighbor, or a delayed flight. If that specific thing vanished tomorrow, would your lungs still take an air? Would your heart still beat?
And if the answer is yes, then the alarm bells you're hearing in your head, that tightness in your chest, is merely the discomfort of adaptation.
It's just a withdrawal symptom.
Exactly. It is not the alarm of genuine loss. The thing in question was not keeping you alive. Recognizing this shifts the physiological response. It literally tells your nervous system to stand down.
But there is a very specific emotional signature that happens when we fail to recognize this, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
When we treat a non-essential as an essential and then it gets threatened or delayed, we don't just feel sad or scared, we feel something else entirely. It's a very particular flavor of anger.
The research calls it petulance.
Petulance, which is just a brilliant word for this state.
It really captures it. It is the specific emotional output that happens when a system has deeply absorbed the belief that a non-necessity is essential and then experiences its absence or delay as a profound personal violation.
A personal violation, like you've been robbed.
Right. It's not just the feeling of, I miss this. It is the feeling of, how dare the universe take this from me?
It makes me think of, like, a spoiled aristocrat who has lived their entire life in a castle.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
They've completely forgotten that they didn't build the castle, they don't farm the land, and they don't draw the water. But the second their favorite silk pillow is missing, they throw a tantrum because they believe their royal status is a biological necessity.
They've confused luxury with life support.
Exactly. Petulance isn't just a bad mood, it's the feeling that the world owes you a debt it never actually incurred.
Yes.
You feel cheated out of something that was never yours by right in the first place, simply because a false essentialism has become your default posture.
And every single time something inessential is relabeled as essential, petulance gains a stronger foothold in your psychology.
It just builds and builds.
You begin to feel wronged simply because the ordinary chaotic movement of life shifted an inessential thing out of your path. You face a traffic jam, and instead of seeing it as a neutral logistical delay,
Which is all it is.
your nervous system processes it as an existential insult.
Which breeds that low-grade permanent anxiety we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive. You are always waiting to be robbed of things you don't even actually need.
Precisely. You become a prisoner to your own mislabeling.
So what does this all mean for how we actually live? Let's ground this for a second.
Sure.
If we apply this ruthless test to everything, and we stop acting petulantly about all our non-essentials, does our life just become this bleak, bare-bones survival mission?
A lot of people worry about that.
Right. Are the sources arguing that we should give away all our belongings, move into an empty room, and only care about air, water, and warmth?
No, not at all. And the philosophical frameworks are extremely careful to clarify this point. This is not a manifesto for asceticism.
Okay, good.
It explicitly rejects the idea of deprivation performed as virtue. Stripping away the mislabeling doesn't leave you with emptiness. It leaves you with essence.
Essence.
Yes.
Yeah.
This entire exercise is purely an argument for naming things accurately.
Accurate naming. So you can still have the throw pillow. You just have to look at it and admit it's a throw pillow.
That's exactly. To illustrate this, the writings use this beautiful visual metaphor called the open field.
The open field. Tell me about that.
So when you finally get honest with yourself, that short, non-negotiable list air, water, warmth, safety, connection that remains in the center.
Right, the true essentials.
But it is now surrounded by a massive, wide open field of things that are chosen rather than required.
Oh, wow. That completely shifts the gravity of everything in your life.
It creates a profound lightness of choice. When things are accurately placed in that open field, your relationship to them transforms. Absolutely nothing in that field is pretending to hold up the structure of your life.
Think about what this means for a romantic relationship.
It's huge for relationships.
If you demand that your partner act as an essential life support system, if you say, I cannot live without you, you are putting a crushing, impossible weight on them.
You're turning them into an oxygen tank.
Yes, you are making them a load-bearing wall. But a relationship that is held simply as a relationship, placed in that open field, can finally just be what it actually is.
Two people choosing each other.
You don't need them to survive. You choose to walk alongside them.
And the same applies to a career path, a creative hobby, or a personal ambition. If you hold a practice as a practice and don't elevate it to an absolute essential for your identity, you can engage with it fiercely.
You can still care about it.
You can pursue absolute excellence, but you can also release it or fail at it or return to it later without experiencing grief that is completely disproportionate to its real weight.
Because it's not life or death.
Exactly. You don't have to want less. You don't have to need less than is currently true for your lifestyle. You can value things, enjoy things, deeply love things. But they never have to claim the status of essential in order to matter.
That is so freeing. When you stop demanding that your chosen things hold up the roof, you can actually enjoy the house for the first time.
You can finally relax.
You are freed from the sheer exhaustion of defending the perimeter, because what is genuinely necessary to keep you alive was already there before anything else was added.
The foundation was always secure.
The list of what we actually need doesn't grow as we get older or wealthier or more successful. It just gets buried.
Buried under false essentials.
Buried under a mountain of things that were never on the list to begin with. Accurately naming what is essential frees you from that permanent anxiety. You don't have to panic when the furniture gets rearranged or when a throw pillow gets lost, because the foundation is perfectly fine.
It entirely reorients your relationship with loss and change. If, biologically and psychologically that the foundation is secure, the movement of everything else is just the natural flow of life.
It's not an existential threat.
Right, it's just life happening.
Man, we have unpacked a massive amount of psychological terrain today. We've gone from throw pillows and load-bearing walls into the biological trickery of our nervous systems and prediction machines, and finally stepped out into that open field of choice.
It's quite a journey.
The core takeaway from our deep dive today is that our necessary list has been short the entire time. Air, water, warmth, rest, safety, basic connection.
That's the list.
Everything else, the job titles, the social status, the specific routines, is a choice, an adaptation, or a story we tell ourselves to feel secure. Recognizing the difference and applying that ruthless test is the key to dropping an incredible amount of unnecessary suffering.
This raises an important question, though. A final thought to build on the framework we've just explored.
Okay, let's hear it.
If adaptation feels identical to necessity from the inside, if our nervous systems literally cannot tell the difference without conscious intervention, and we have spent years, maybe decades, organizing our lives around these false essentials, what happens to our sense of identity when we finally wake up to the mislabeling?
Oh, wow.
When we realize the beliefs, the possessions, and the titles we've defended most fiercely aren't actually who we are? Does the irreducible core of who you are as a person follow that exact same short, honest list as your physical body?
Who are you when you stop defending the throw pillows? That is a profound question to chew on.
It changes everything.
It really does. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go about your week, we encourage you to take a look around your own life, examine your own architecture, and apply the ruthless test to a few of those walls you thought were load-bearing.
See what stays standing.
You might be surprised at how much lighter the roof feels when you realize what's actually holding it up. Catch you next time.